It's the future. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. It's the future. It's the future. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
Revolutionary greetings once again. This is Brother Terrence from the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.
And I'm Mama D from the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yes, we'd like to welcome you once again. This is To Africa Must Unite, Podcast 22.
Woo!
Yes, and the theme of this one is Workers, Women, and Youth. Sectors exploited and oppressed, and sectors to organize.
Oh, yes. Yes. And as always, we're going to start with important events on our calendar for the month of October. So, and there's quite a few, Terrence. On the 1st of October, Nigeria gains independence in 1960. And on this same date, the first victory of the Chinese People's Revolution, 1949. On the 2nd, Nat Turner, African freedom fighter, was born in 1800 in Guinea. It's his political independence day, gained in 1958 on October 2nd. And on the 6th of October, our sister Fannie Lou Hamer, African freedom fighter, was born in 1917. And on the 7th, Elijah Muhammad, African leader of the Nation of Islam, was born in 1897. And on this, the 8th, Wangari Maathai, Kenyan ecologist, became the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. That was several years ago. Wasn't that beautiful? Yes. And on the 9th, Che Guevara, Cuban freedom fighter, was killed in Bolivia in 1967. And on the 9th, in 1962, Uganda gained its independence. On the 10th, Gabriel Prosser, leader of the slave rebellion in Richmond, Virginia area, was executed in 1800. And this is an important piece of information. Elmer Imes, an African astrophysicist, works along with Einstein and others in developing the quantum theory of physics back in 1883. And Joe Anderson, an enslaved African, helped invent the grain harvester reaper in 1831. Our youth need to know about some of these inventions. That the slave master took credit for, right? On the 14th, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, and Julius Nyerere, first president of Tanzania, died in 1999. On the 15th, Thomas Sankara, Pan-Africanist and president of Burkina Faso, was assassinated in 1987. On the 16th, Jean Dessalines, revolutionary leader of Haiti, was assassinated in 1806. On the 18th, the Black Consciousness Movement of Azania was banned in 1977. And on the 19th, Muammar Gaddafi, leader of the Socialist People's Libyan Arab Jamahiriya movement, was assassinated by the imperialist puppets Transitional National Council in 2011. That was a horrible moment as he was rallying people for United Africa, right?
Spearheaded.
Our own currency and bank and
assassination spearheaded by Barack Obama.
Isn't that something? Russell Charles Means on the 19th, Sioux activist for the rights of Native Americans, died in 2012. And on the 20th, Jesse Owens, African athlete, won 4 gold medals in Germany at the time when Hitler was preaching European supremacy. And that was in 1938.
38? Oh.
38, I think it was 38. And on the 22nd, Sojourner Truth spoke at Women's Rights Convention in Ohio in 1851. And on this same day, the 22nd of October, John Carlos and Tommy Smith gave the historic Black Power salute at the 1966 Olympics. You did something similar, didn't you?
Yeah, inspired by Tommy Smith and John Carlos and Colin Kaepernick, yes.
We got you. We got a picture of you. On the 24th, October Revolution created first socialist state in USSR in 1917. On the 24th, Rosa Parks died in 2005. And on the 25th, we can't remember what's happening throughout the world, including the Caribbean. The U.S. and Caribbean puppets invade Grenada in 1983. And let's do one more inventor. On the 29th, J. Standard, African inventor, patented the oil stove in 1889. Wow. So some important dates. October is filled. You know, we had to kind of skip around there.
It was interesting. You brought up Grenada in October 25th. I just saw a quick snippet of a speech by Maurice Bishop.
Oh, wow.
I got to show it to you. It was probably 2 minutes long where he was I think he was in New York talking to people and was saying, you know, this Grenada Revolution, what makes it more powerful and why the U.S. wants to stop it is because we're speaking English and we can communicate to you all, to you Africans here in America. So it was something else.
And I had a chance to go to Grenada and while he was in power and slept it. That was one of my worst nightmares that I didn't do it. So.
Oh, yes. So, again, we talked about our theme this month being workers, women, and youth. So we understand that these sectors are exploited and oppressed. So we're going to bring attention to these sectors. So let me just say this real quick. Kwame Nkrumah once said, the degree of a country's revolutionary awareness may be measured by the political maturity of its women. So let's understand that. A brief look at the African world will quickly reveal that the most exploited and oppressed of our people are workers, both urban and rural, women suffering from class exploitation, national oppression and gender oppression, and youth who are oppressed by police, schools, and social services. These 3 sectors are critical for us to organize because they each are the key to bringing about revolutionary change. A union of African socialist states, the only permanent solution to the plight of African people and the people of African descent globally. Workers, because their position in the productive process entitle them to become the owners and directors of the economic system. Women, exploited and oppressed by the capitalism in all of its forms because they must demand liberation in order for there to be a new African woman and a new humanist African man. The youth, the spark of revolution, because they represent the energy and the future of our people. To build strong revolutionary socialist Pan-African organizations, we must fight labor exploitation and workers and organize workers and peasants. We must fight gender oppression and we must fight social alienation by the state, Western and educational institutions, and reactionary mass culture and propaganda, and organize our youth. Forward to the African Revolution, build Pan-African revolutionary socialist organizations.
It's real key to focus on this topic at this time. You know, we are talking about some of the things that we hold in common as revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations. And, these sectors that are most oppressed, I think we can all agree on. And if they are most exploited and oppressed, then we need to have round up energy, and begin to concentrate and focus on these sectors and try to get them organized. And when you talk about the workers, we just want to quote Kwame Nkrumah Osajifo, who said, once he's speaking of the African Revolution, once both urban proletariat and peasants joined forces in a struggle to achieve socialism, the African Revolution has in effect been won.
Yes.
And this is class struggle in Africa. And unlike some Marxists, Nkrumah always saw both proletariat, urban worker, and peasants together as workers. He didn't separate them and say the worker versus the peasants. He looked at both of them together as workers, and that is a strong statement in class struggle in Africa about that reality that distinguishes us from some Marxists. And in terms of youth, Nkrumah always focused on youth from 1948 even, but beginning in 1959, when you look at some of the cabinet minutes that of Ghana, then you see that he, at that time being prime minister, introduced things to deal with the young pioneer movement. So, on August 4th, 1959, the cabinet had before it a memorandum circulated by the prime minister, that's Nkrumah, and approved in principle the establishment of a movement to be called the Young Pioneers. Nkrumah and others always saw the youth as the spark of the African Revolution. Yes. So, from the moment he has some power and some control, of matters in Ghana, he is touting, and trying to organize the youth. And he says, on our youth depends the future of Africa and the continent's total liberation and unity. So, one of the things he tried to do is right away establish a movement of youth where they would learn skills, but most importantly, learn political education. And we had a chance in 1990, Terrence, to interview one of the people instrumental in sending youth to Ghana from the Gambia to become a part of the Young Pioneer movement. And his name was Jahumpa. And he talks about Nkrumah inviting him. This is from the book Kwame Nkrumah and the Young Pioneer Movement. Okay. But he says, Nkrumah invited me to Accra and showed me what he was doing, and then invited me to send young people to Ghana. He talked to the Gambian Committee, the Gambian National Congress, and we asked them to send in applications and get passports for youth. And we interviewed a number of young Gambians and selected 200 of them. So, not only was the Young Pioneer Movement, the efforts to organize youth concentrated in Ghana, but, Nkrumah always acted as if Africa was one united socialist Africa. You know what I mean? Yes. He acted as if. He said, we have to do something about the Rhodesia question. And he's in Ghana. He said, we have to do something about they're trying to test bombs in the Sahara. And so he saw all of Africa as one, even, as early as the 1964, 1965 and that time. But, it's real important in terms of how he saw the youth as the spark of the African Revolution, and sought to and got the Young Pioneer Movement started. And some people outside of the continent call their youth group the Young Pioneer Movement. Do you know that? Yes. They've taken that name from it. And another point is in terms of the whole question of women And you read that powerful statement that he has on women.
The degree
Yeah,
of
that
a country's
degree.
revolutionary awareness may be measured by its political maturity of its women.
That's right. And, he hadn't always thought that way. But he began to think more and more of women in an egalitarian way. In 1960, at the Conference of Women of African Descent, he mentioned the role of women as helpmeets to their men. And, later, though, he refers to them as sisters of the African Liberation Front. It just shows we all grow on the question of gender. It's real important, that growth that occurs on that question. And the other thing is that once he's overthrown and he's in Conakry, most of the people he's in contact with are people who are women. Isn't that interesting?
Last years of his life,
and, it's because they help them to think out certain questions. And this is not, generalizing or going overboard or anything like that. But women like Julia Wright, Reba Lewis, Shirley Graham Du Bois, these are examples of people he were in constant contact with, because Nkrumah, after he's overthrown, is not wasting time talking to people who are not going to help with the African Revolution.
There we go.
And the very fact that he's communicating and writing to these women, and some of them visiting him, is because they are thinking about the African Revolution too. Well. He doesn't have time for anybody who's not doing that. So we'll wait for our guests to call in, then we'll be back. Okay, now I think we got it. So this is Brother Neil of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, who is with us today, Terrence.
How's it going, Brother Neil?
It's going good. How you doing?
Man, I'm pretty good. You? All right.
Oh, pretty good. Yeah.
So we are so delighted to have you with us on this important topic, Terrence. We said what? There's nothing more important than this.
Yes, dealing with the exploited, oppressed class sector.
Yeah, sectors. That's workers, women, and youth. Sectors exploited and oppressed, sectors to organize. And we are delighted to have you with us, our comrade in struggle. Isn't that right, Terrence?
Absolutely.
So I guess, Terrence, you're asking the first question we have, because we called on Brother Neil so that he can help us explore these sectors that he's so knowledgeable about.
All right, Brother Neil. First question to hear is, what are some things we can do to fight against gender oppression and organize women, organize our sisters here?
Yeah, I think one of the first things, this is an extremely important question for our movement, but one of the first things we need to recognize is that gender oppression is very old, been around for a very long time, and it's fundamental. That is, you find gender oppression systemically in every institution, from the household out to the nation, to the economic system and whatever. So we have to confront gender oppression on all fronts. Within the household, for instance, brothers have to be involved in some of those things that we, quote unquote, traditionally refer to as women's, work, care for children, cooking, cleaning, all these sorts of things. And we need to take on those kinds of aspects of that work, and that gives our sisters actually more time to do some things, and also gives us the experience and the benefits, really, and the appreciation for doing some of those other sorts of things that somehow we usually don't refer to as men's work. The other thing is that we need to confront because there are a lot of, we have day-to-day discussions. And in these day-to-day discussions, we have ways in which women are demeaned on a daily basis, and we look at them as some kind of jokes or some sort of just day-to-day conversation or quote-unquote everyday conversation. And we need to confront these kinds of things as well. Also, we need to really make a concerted effort to recruit women into the movement, and not only just recruit women into the movement, but to make a conscious effort as a movement to oppose gender oppression. That needs to be a major part of the revolution, because without rooting out gender oppression, we really don't make a revolution. We only have sort of a half-formed revolutionary kind of a process. It's not truly revolutionary if we don't root out one of the biggest elements. Women have to be involved in every aspect of our political work and in all levels of leadership in the political work. And we must all of us who are involved in this work to build Pan-Africanism, we must all be involved in trying to study, analyze, and equip ourselves with the knowledge and the tools and the understanding of how this gender oppression emerged and what it's going to take to uproot it and destroy it. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a one type event type of thing. It's an ongoing, unrelenting process that we must all be involved in. Brothers have to be involved with it as much as women. We have to all be involved in this process.
And
so
that's
confront gender. Excuse me.
Oh, I was just going to say that's a good point you make, how we all have to be involved. And your other point about, 50% or over 50% of the population are females in terms of African people. And we're never going to win, in terms of struggling and achieving Pan-Africanism without the participation of sisters. And, as you say, sisters not going to come along unless you show them that you're following a path or on a path that's different from our enemy. Because, capitalism is the whole root cause of the oppression that we experience, the women's triple oppression, based on class, national identity, and gender. So, to begin to do those things that you mentioned and begin to walk a walk that's totally down that socialist path and not the capitalist path in terms of relating to our sisters, that's major. And,
we have to also be open to, ongoing criticism and self-criticism. This is because, let's say, brothers are raised up. We're raised up in this, capitalist system. We also raised up in this gender oppressive system where we are taught or socialized to think a certain kind of way. And so we have to constantly, those ideas, those old habits, we have to expose them to ongoing criticism and self-criticism.
That's a key point.
To identify them.
That's a key point. And, maybe before we go to that next question, Audre Lorde said, the true focus of revolutionary change is never merely the oppressive situations that we seek to escape, but that piece of the oppressor, which is planted deep within each of us. So, while we're trying to destroy capitalism and build a united socialist Africa, we're at the same time trying to get rid of that oppressor that's deeply in us, especially when we talk about what's happening in terms of African females.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to our youth here. We know our youth are the spark of revolution. How do we continue to educate and organize this exploited and oppressed sector?
youth are the spark of revolution, and in Africa, on the continent itself, it's the youngest continent in the world. We have more youth as a proportion of the population than anywhere in the world, and in the U.S. and in the rest of the diaspora, in South America, Caribbean, Europe, we also have very young populations. When we see those people who are migrating into Europe, going across that ocean and stuff like that, going across the Mediterranean Sea, dying, those are young people. And when we see those folks, many of them who are being shot down the street by the police, not all the time are youth, but quite often are youth. So our youth are at the tip of the spear, so to speak, but we have to do several things with young people in order for them to really spark the revolution, and because they can also easily get caught up into reaction. So one of the things is that we have to be involved with youth at all levels. So in education with our really young kids, to deal with the kind of education or the kind of miseducation that's going on in our school system that's being promoted by the media, we have to be just as determined to provide organized alternatives to that sort of educational process. Some people call Saturday schools or freedom schools or Uhuru. We can shoelace freedom, Uhuru shoelace. We can have organized programs in the form of where we take our youth and take them through the process of training them and in terms of the work that they have to do. Now, you have, in some places you have the Europeans, the bourgeoisie, they have Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And we can have young pioneers. We can develop young pioneers. It's what they had in Kumasi, Ghana, to organize our youth to do those sorts of things that help to train them in terms of the revolutionary process. And we also have to be involved with our youth on a daily basis.
No, that's true. On a daily basis, I was just going to agree with you on that whole idea of the young pioneers, or they might not be called the young pioneers. We call it here, Terrence, the Watoto Uhuru Shule Children's Freedom School, but it's a political education because they in school are not getting their history and culture and current reality. So that's our job and our role, as you said, to prepare them to be the spark. And then, I remember students would ask, well, why are youth the spark? Why are students the spark of revolution and not you as an elder? And, we used to talk about, the fact that the energy level of youth, that they're ready to go. A lot of times they're looking for their career job. They're not set in their ways in some kind of career. Just their motion is faster. And once they're presented with information and knowing what's the right direction to go in, they're not going to say, they're gonna be ready to move. They say, well, come on, let's go. And history has proven that, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And the thing about the other reason that they're the spark of the revolution is because not only do they have their energy level, but they have their feet in two different places. They have 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future. They are the connection between the past and the future. And that's one thing that Ray points out, and other folks point out, is that as youth, they are going to be there when we are not there. They're the continuation. Each generation is a continuation, so they have to be involved in political education, and we have to both have to get them the ideological training, but also give them the room to be creative. Let me give you an example.
That's very important.
In this country, we have something called SNCC, the Student Coordinating Committee. And you had a woman, an older woman by the name of Ella Baker, who, when she had been a student, a college student, had been involved in something called SYNC, Southern Youth Negro Committee, a council. And they had been active. So she took that experience and she became the organizer and advisor to SNCC. She was the person who organized SNCC. She gave them information, she had to train them, and then she turned them loose and let them do their thing. There are some drummers, I think they're in Ghana, and once they do the physical stuff to train you to become a drummer, there's one particular song or piece of music that all the drummers have to do. But they expect each generation of drummers to do this song, but they expect them to do this song in a different sort of way. They don't expect everybody to do it. They know that each generation has different materiality. And so it's going to be the same song, but it's going to be done in a different way. So we have to ensure, we have to not sit on the youth and somehow force them to do things the way we did it back in the day. But we have to ensure that they have the tools, the analytical tools, and the kind of emotional outlook that's going to allow them to understand what is the plan, what is the blueprint, this thing we call Pan-Africanism, and this ideology we call inclusion and so forth. What is that plan? How does it look like? And then how does your generation promote that plan in this particular period? So we have to, when we organize our youth, we can't sit on them too much, and we have to engage them. We have to have that back and forth thing with them. And I'm talking about the older youth now, the teenagers and the young adults. And we have to see what we can learn from them in this process, especially in terms of tactical endeavors.
Those are some...
How they use music, how to use technology, all of these kinds of things are things that some of us old heads, can learn from you.
Those are some very important points, just to give them the history, their culture. They know the current reality, and as you mentioned, the tools that they need to move forward. And I love that point about 1 foot in the present and 1 foot in the future, and they're raring to go. And they just need the information and direction that we can give. Isn't that right, Terrence?
Yes. I deal with them every day, and direction is definitely what they want and seek from us.
Yes.
All right, moving to this third sector here, the workers. What are some effective strategies for organizing workers?
And like with the youth, the workers like the youth, and like the women, 80%. 90% of Africans in this country are workers. On the continent, you have, huge amounts of workers, and either they're not always urban workers when we think about it as factory workers, although just in the past, 10 or 15 years, the number of factory workers and manufacturing workers on the continent has doubled. So in just 10 countries, it's doubled in 10 most industrialized countries. But we have people who work on farms on the continent. They're rural workers, and you have people who are kind of on the street, hustling here and there, and they are in what we call working in informal economy. So everywhere we go, we have workers, and we encounter workers and we live next door to workers, and so we have to engage in that everyday life of people. So, for instance, there are a couple of ways. One thing is to engage people just on an everyday level. When you go to the grocery store, you go to the McDonald's or wherever, now you go see workers, you go see young workers, and engage them in conversation. Because I've got some young workers now. We give them book lists because we talk about books and talk about ideas. The other thing is working with organized workers. So when there's things like in this country the Fight for 15 movement, we need to be involved with that, but be involved with it when people have to understand that it's not just an economic piece that we're working with, but it's also a political piece. And we have to encourage those Africans who are in organized labor to be involved in not just trying to get a better contract and so forth, but also to look at the political issues and those political issues on a international Pan-African level. For instance, we used to work with some people who were involved in the rubber industry in this country. They were rubber worker union members, and we encouraged them to help to fight on an international level for those Africans on the continent who were the people who tapped the rubber, who got the rubber out of the tree in the first place, or the latex out of the tree. And those people were only making like $30 a month. They were working all day long, and more than an 8-hour day. They were working 10, 12-hour days, and they were carrying like up to 80 pounds of rubber back and forth from those trees all day long. And at the end of the month, they got $30 and some cooking oil and some rice.
So I mean, it's a good point that you make in terms of, the enemy is a global enemy. When you talk about the capitalism, you're talking about global capitalism, and you're talking about the need to understand as workers that you have a lot in common. Not just in terms of African workers or those on the continent or throughout the African world, but exploited workers everywhere. So the struggle becomes a Pan-African worker struggle and an international worker struggle as well. So, but that point I like so much, or that makes so much sense, is as we walk throughout the course of the day, we got to be teaching, and talking to the worker about their position. And one worker said at the grocery store here about how they're dogged out so much. And one response that this brother had was, you working on a slave plantation. And the brother said, at first, that hurt me to hear him say that. But when he thought about it, he said, yes, indeed, I'm working on a slave plantation in a grocery store.
Yes.
But we definitely appreciate your feedback, all of the information you've given us. Brother Neil, we always learn from you. So we are fortunate to have you as a part of this podcast, this very important podcast on the workers, the women, and the youth.
Well,
thank you.
As a people, we are fortunate for this podcast. And, we're very fortunate because this is a, educational piece that's reaching people all around the globe, and it's equipping people with the tools that we need to fight and win and do what we are going to do. This victory is ours. And that's the other thing with the workers. They have to understand that they are leaders. They're not just people not just there to be beat up on, but they represent the leadership, part of the leadership in our community. All of the oppressed sectors are leadership. And we should be developing them as leadership systems, developing as leaders, youth, developing as leaders, workers, develop them as leaders. And take this thing to the roof.
That's right. And thank you. So we're just going to have them come back on
Absolutely.
and give us some more of this powerful information. So we thank you so much, Neil.
And thank you.
All right, take care, bro. All right, people. In the subsequent months here, at times with the help of invited revolutionary guests like Brother Neil here, we will continue to discuss additional key elements of Pan-Africanism that are embraced by the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party and other revolutionary Pan-African organizations.
And we hope you'll join us next month when we'll discuss principles, traditional African principles, and revolutionary party principles. Meanwhile, leave comments on our website, prsponline.org, like us on soundcloud.com, visit us on YouTube, like us on Facebook.
And remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
Battery. Yeah. Man, I gotta go. What? I mean, fuck it. I think I could do one more. One more? But I really gotta get up early and shit. God damn it, holiday on a Monday. And I done got the shift that got me stuck here till the midday. When everybody already ready to get to chillin'. Tucking in all my children and make sure my woman getting it. Let's get it on. Later on, we can eat it pop. Hit the homie Roy as soon as we pulled in that parking lot. You hungry? I know I gotta get up super early for my job. But the guy said don't trip, bam, there's 4 hours till tomorrow. It's the working for the weekend. If you ain't got a weekend, you should treat the hours in between work like a weekend. Pull the family whip out, Esteban pull the pala out. Switches make it go up, buttons make it go down. Sanam Luam right there in Hollywood is open, but hit the ATM is cash only. Only spoken from a vet. Street food out on Temple, jumping in before I go back home. I gotta grab my mama something, cuz party till the sun up. I got work in the morning, work in the morning, work in the morning. Tell the homies don't be lagging. I got work in the morning, work in the morning, work in the morning. And after hours, I got work in the morning, work in the morning, work in the morning. Good Lord, please forgive me. I got work in the morning, 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 work in the morning. Working late to pay the rent might lead you to an early death. I guess that's why they call this thing a graveyard shift. We came to America to take that work. Immigrants that were willing to dig hands in dirt. Now their children are hurt off of East Wilshire. Recording raps in a hotel cause one of the owners of the restaurant is built upon an immigrant earth. But I got work in a few, might have to shorten my verse. Wanna pop across the city making plans with his mans. Get to drinking later on cause he got work, know what I'm saying? Or whatever type of vice to get you good. Me, I like to break it down and roll on top of book. This for all the dreamers, the ones who don't complain, the ones who struggle through it, wake up and do it again, the ones who used to bang and do all type of things. Grew up and got a family, different gang but the same. Bang. Party till the sun up. I got work in the morning, work in the morning, work in the morning. Tell the homies don't be lagging. I got work in the morning, work in the morning, work in the morning. And after hours, I got work in the morning, work in the morning, work in the morning. Good Lord, please forgive me. I got work in the morning, 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 work in
Feel sick and tired of working like dogs to make